Hello, Waswere here, back with another video, and today we're going to be ranking all of the updates of 2020. While the frequency of the updates was a little less than what we would like, when the updates did come out, they were a banger and they were very good. I've compiled a list of all of the updates for 2020 and we're going to go through them, ranking them from worst to best. There are a total of 18 updates to go through, so let's get to it. I just wanted to put a little caveat in here that these are my personal opinions, and just because I ranked an update low doesn't mean it's a bad update, or if I ranked it high doesn't mean it's a good update. It just means that it didn't have what I wanted out of it. First off, we need to talk about the 3 updates that I haven't interacted with or completed enough to be able to give an accurate review of. They are Violet is Blue 2, the new quest, construction contracts, and the effigy incubator. I haven't been in the right mood to complete the quest, and it's something I want to enjoy for myself and not rush through for the sake of a video. While the effigy incubator and construction contracts are all about XP, and well, since I can't gain XP on my main, it's something I want to experience on an alternate account like my UIM, where I can understand the XP gained and feel it and give a better review of it. But with that in mind, let's get to the other 15 updates. I feel bad putting this update last, but it just doesn't have an immediate impact on the average player. The achievement update. They went in and redesigned how the interface works and made it a hell of a lot more user-friendly, but at the end of the day, it's still a bloated interface where it's very hard to find the specific thing you want, and for the regular user, I don't think much has actually changed. However, I do see the potential in the interface for something like a league in RS3, where having this backend setup in the interface can make the implementation that much better. Sticking with the theme of things that really didn't change, we have the Penguin update. Sure, they added a new shop and boosted the XP per point to make it more worthwhile to do, but I don't see any actual changes to the content. You hunt penguins on World 60 using either the FC or their website and then cash in your points for XP. I felt for what was a rework of a once dead D&D, it was a little weak. The random 00 agents are nice for the casker rewards, but again, didn't feel worth a full rework, and it's just kind of a very weak update. At number 13, we have Once Upon a Slime. This is a tiny quest with a cute 5-minute story. It's not a bad quest, it's just not a big one, and it had been about 10 months since the last quest, so it left a bad taste in people's mouths. However, one of the really cool things about this quest is that it changes the early game meta for cooking. I did a whole video where we went over all of the low level quests that can be done to get to about to level 30 and 40 in every skill without training them, cooking being one of them where you can get up to level 40 without ever cooking anything. Number 12 is an update that was focused primarily at Iron Man, so it's going to get admittedly a lower ranking than it deserves from me, who is primarily a mainscaper. The Lunar Spellbook update. The main driver of the update was the 4 new Lunar Spells. The first one, Telekinetic Grind, grinds all of the items you can grind in your inventory. If it's a stackable item like Mudrooms, it does 60 at a time. This is very nice for Iron Man because unlike us weak mainscapers, they can't buy things like those ground Mudrooms from the GE and instead have to crush them themselves. It's relatively rare that you need to actually grind items, but when you do, this spell is a godsend to have. The next spell, Sift Soil, is another Iron Man friendly one as it increases the speed at which you sift the soil, and you can do it right next to a bank, meaning that for Iron Man they are now incentivized to bank the soil and then sift it nearby at a bank. Once you have the Master Archaeologist outfit, which you get at 99 Archaeology, you can sift about 5,800 soil per hour, meaning you're getting that many more materials, meaning less time spent at caches for the excess materials you need to get your artifacts because you can't buy them on the GE. Just another great thing to have to train Archaeology on an Iron Man. Fire Urn is another Iron Man friendly spell as making urns is considerably faster. While it can be a mainscape training method as I covered in a video, it's really not the best thing as most people can make enough GP to get more XP per hour with black D-hide shields and then use the extra time saved to make the money they lost on training crafting. For Iron Man, it's particularly good because they can then use those urns which they can make faster to get more divination experience, get more mining experience, get more woodcutting experience. So therefore those other slower skills can now be sped up on an Iron Man where otherwise you might not use urns because of the amount of time it takes to get them. The last spell, Telekinetic Trap, is the most mainscape one as it boosts the Hunter XP per hour when not using Protean traps, but it's not a big enough change to justify the extra effort required in my opinion, and I just stick with the main Hunter method. It's Rework City. We have another rework at number 11. It's the Shattered Worlds rework. Shattered Worlds was a massive flop when it first came out. It was advertised as traveling to new worlds and clearing mobs in a wave format, getting buffs and the like, almost like a roguelike, but it became very samey very quickly. By the time I got to World 20, I felt as though I had done everything 3 times already. On the initial release, I didn't even stay to get Bladed Dive and Greater Dazing Shot. It just wasn't enough fun. However, on this update, they drew me back in, and while it still had that samey feel to it, the small amount of variety for the challenges were really nice. It was able to grip me long enough to unlock both Bladed Dive and Greater Dazing Shot. I still don't think Shattered Worlds is the most fun content out there, as the only challenge comes from getting the bad buffs or getting to a high world count where you just splash more than half of the time, but it's way better than it was on release. Continuing the theme of reworks, next up we have the Grand Exchange reworks. This update is probably last on a couple of Iron Man's lists, but for me it's higher. The responsiveness of the GE is just so good. I can't believe that we use the old GE for over 10 years. Being able to favorite items that you buy frequently and a longer GE history is just those small things that have a positive impact on our daily gameplay. Seeing as it's a small update, I can't really justify having it much higher than 10, but it's the best of these sort of rework small update things that Jagex came out with in 2020 while they were getting accustomed to working from home with the pandemic. At number 9, we have another biased one, and that's interface scaling. For me as a content creator, it's really nice to be able to zoom in on the interface while still recording in 1080p. This means that the video can still have a high quality associated with it, while having the interface blown up to a readable size for the viewer. I do my best to zoom at the right spots, but it would be so much better if it was a larger interface zoomed in. I haven't swapped over on my main account, but for the Ultimate Iron Man, I've gone to a full 140% zoom in, so things are much bigger and better for the viewer. For the last of what I'll call the small updates, we have the T92 Mage Range Armor Repair changes. This was a long-awaited update as the T92 armors were just not economical to use unless you were inside an elite dungeon where they did not degrade. The goal of this update was to increase the use of T92 armors outside of elite dungeons. This would increase the price of Draconic Energy and Ancient Scales as more people would use them, and it looks like it was a success. Notable cheapskate me now owns both the T92 Tectonic and Serenic set, and I do not feel bad using them and letting them degrade and having to pay to repair them. In the past, I used to use Virtus and Pernix because I felt that the Tectonic and Serenic costs were too much to justify, but now that it's T92, I can feel like I can justify it. Now let's get into the 7 big updates for 2020, and sorry to all of you lorehounds out there, but Desperate Measures is going last. Fun quest, no doubt, but it's just not what I would expect out of the game after about 2 years of the story not moving. With that long gap, I expected Desperate Measures to be grandiose, but it just felt like another 6th-stage quest. The voiceover cutscenes are so cool, please continue doing them, and it obviously set the stage for God Wars Dungeon 3 to be on Anachronia, but without God Wars Dungeon 3 coming in 2020, it just felt weak and kind of empty and felt like the story didn't really end. Alchemical Hydrix slide in at number 6. It's a fun update that sinks a lot of wealth out of the top level players and distributes it down to the lower level players, which is always good out of an update, as I think trickle-down economics actually work in RuneScape, so it's something they should keep doing. The only problem I have with it is the large amount of power creep associated with it. It gives us the Amulet of Souls effect, the Reaper Necklace effect, and a new effect to store various powerful special attack items within them all at the same time. I don't think people realize just how good this amulet is, but it's a lot of fun to use, so I'll give it a pass on the power creep. For the Brooch of the God, it's another thing that reduces the amount of skilling resources required, as the portable effect has been multiplied by 2. So if you were normally saving 10% of your logs, you're now saving 20% of your logs. Ends up with more resources not exiting the game. So I always thought portables were already bad for the game, but making them 2 times as powerful is even worse. So again, it's not something I necessarily agree with their implementation, especially because portables are a very microtransaction item, and this is an item that directly interacts with microtransactions, so it kind of rubs me the wrong way. But again, it's fun, it saves people's GP in the long term, so it's hard to hate it too much. It's time for the top 5, and oh boy, these are some good updates. As I said at the start of the video, the frequency was low, but when we got them, they were really good. First up, we have Orthen, which was a very well-placed update. The mysteries were easy enough that I didn't feel compelled to wait for a guide, but also difficult enough that it didn't feel trivial and it was something I was proud of when it was done. The extra 150 relic power opened a major amount of quality of life for the relics, as once you have Berserker's Fury and Fury the Small, the third slot can be either a PvM relic like Death Ward, which is a very minimal reduction in the amount of damage you take, or it can be something quality of life like Persistent Rage or the Luck of the Dwarves relic. I've personally gone to Persistent Rage as it's so nice to not have to dread install all the time. 650 relic power total was the right choice to get people to choose quality of life over purely PvM relics. The only downside I have with Orthen is that it felt very samey to regular Archaeology, but that's just a core problem with the skill and any gathering skill in RuneScape, where it's mostly just a reskin of another piece of content. For example, yew trees and magic trees are functionally the same thing, just with different XP and GP rates. Raksha slides in at number 4, just missing out on the medal table. I think it's a very good boss, and as always, Mod Ryan does a ton of great work for RuneScape. In fact, I think he was on the team for 4 of the top 5 items on this list, which just shows you how much he brings to Jagex and the development team there. Raksha is a very old school theme boss in my opinion, with large amounts of emphasis on prayer flicking in your character's positioning, while also bringing the best out of the EOC combat mode by having ads that need to be carefully taken care of. On top of that, there is a real progression to the boss. Your first kill, you do all the mechanics as you're learning what he does, then you start skipping the siphon on phase 1 because you can do 200k damage in time. Then you start skipping it on a phase 2 because you also can do 200k damage in time, and then you try to get the phase done before the second siphon on phase 3. And then you keep improving and you keep improving. I'm over 300 kills so far and I'm still loving the boss. I'm really motivated to get that log done as soon as possible. I want the pet, I want that title. My only gripe with the boss is that duo mode seems like it's the right play for the boss. It's easier for both players, both the tank and the DPS. It's faster assuming your partner is on the same skill level and gear level as you, and the drop rates are identical across the modes. The main motivation to solo the boss is that you can't find a duo partner and you want to go, or you're just purely a solo player. Which is kind of unfortunate because I like there to be different things. For example, with Elite Dungeons, when you want to get the pet, you're incentivized to solo, but if you're only after like the codexes in Elite Dungeon 2, duoing isn't that bad. So there's a lot of give and take, and you can do a specific mode when you're after a specific thing. Or for Raksha, it's basically the same thing, just with 2 people. At number 3, we have another boss, but it's an older one that was revitalized in 2020, Solak. Solak, much like AOD, was a pretty toxic place to go before scaling was a thing. It was really hard to find a consistent 7 people to go with among my friend group, so it mostly meant on relying on randoms to get 7-man teams together, and PvMing with randoms is nowhere near as much fun as PvMing with friends. And at the time, duo mode was an option, but it had a much higher skill ceiling and I wasn't ready for it. Solak Scaling made it possible to go to the boss with a varied amount of people. Since its release, I've done 2 to 6 man kills, with the majority of the kills being in 3 to 5 man teams. The best part about scaling is that you can have, say, a group of 5 people that want to go regularly, and then say only 3 can make it on Tuesday, so you can still go and you're not scrounging around looking for 2 other randoms to fill those slots. You just have the fight scaled down for you to 3 people. This also makes it very easy to add another player to the team, as while the mechanics and methods change with the number of people, the changes are negligible. As a whole, scaling made the boss a much more positive environment and way more fun for me. I hope that all future large group bosses have these sorts of scaling attached to it on release, as it just makes it so much better. In the silver medal position, we have what would be a gold medal winner every other year, and it's War's Retreat. It's not new content, but boy did it make everyone who PvMs a life a hell of a lot nicer. Here's just a small list of things it brings. A one-click teleport a couple of squares away from the bank, prayer summoning points regen right next to a bank, dummies for practicing DPS at a convenient location, adrenaline crystals so you don't need to gain adrenaline with a dummy before a tough fight, which was standard practice in the PvM meta before War's Retreat came out. Restoring your adrenaline potion timer, so if you accidentally die 30 seconds into a kill, something I do very frequently, you don't have to wait another 90 seconds to try it again. And there's up to 4 portables to teleport to various bosses. And as long as you have 1 kill count at a boss, you can teleport right to their area. So that means the first time you do a kill, like say you want to get your first DK skill, you still need to run through the area and conquer that part of the boss. But then once once you've done that 100 times, you don't need to do that again. You can just go ahead and go through the portal, and really a lot of fun isn't taken away from it. It just increases your kills per hour. It's lessened the burden of having maxscape before being able to PvM efficiently, and made it so that people of various skill levels were interacting on a daily basis. The amount of helpful tips I've overheard or given at Wars Retreat is something that would never happen when the max guild was the PvM Hub. I don't think much else needs to be said. Any other year, it would probably be number one. And as you all might have expected from the very beginning of this video, yes, Archaeology is number one. It's without a shadow of doubt the best skill release that Jagex has ever had, at least since the RS Classic days. Invention was an unbalanced mess on release, so unbalanced that they increased the amount of XP you gain from disassembling or siphoning leveled items by 18 times. And gizmos were way faster XP per hour and cheaper. And when Divination was released, it was just 10 reskin gathering pools where you dump the memories. Not fun content. Jagex spent a lot of time on this skill, and it shows. I had fun the entire way to 200 mil Archaeology, and I was almost sad when I finished because that meant I wouldn't be training the skill anymore, though I was pretty happy with the more sleep I was going to be getting on a daily basis. The mysteries were fun little mini quests, again not too difficult that I needed a guide, but difficult enough that I felt accomplished not using one and felt good about it. I remembered the 107 mystery where you had to line up the dots for each of the Zerosian spells, and I spent half an hour on that puzzle figuring out how the things moved around, what buttons did what, and there wasn't a guide yet because only about 10 to 15 people had done the puzzle at the time, and it felt so good to get that mystery done myself. Feels stupid to be proud of that, but to this day I still am. So yeah, Archaeology, banger of a skill, banger of an update, and yeah, it was just great. That's it. That's the list. Let me know what you thought about 2020. What was your favorite update? This is probably going to be the last video of the year. There might be one more if I get it out in time, but if not, it's going to be in early January. So I just wanted to take the time to thank all of you for a great 2020. It's almost a year to the date where I started editing my first video, and without all of you, this really wouldn't be possible. And I want to hit 2020 running and have another great year of content. Enjoy the holidays, and I'll see you in the new year.